Law and Crime Report. I'm your host, Bob Bianchi. And because Allure is gone does not mean we don't have two great other guests that are going to be with us on for the rest of the show. Let me introduce to you first Jamie White, Esquire, out of Michigan, the owner of the White law firm, Mass Torts like Flint, Michigan, and other major stuff. I was very impressed when I was reading your resume, including mass actions for victims of sexual assault, to criminal defense, appellate practice, personal injury. His firm does it all, and he's also a media and legal expert. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And Holly Davis out of Austin, Texas, former assistant district attorney with the Kirker-Davis law firm, primarily handling family law, divorce, custody, and child support, also business litigation and estate planning. Welcome to the show, Holly.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So listen, guys, we got this bribery for pardon scheme that's going on. I mean, like, what else can we pile on? It reminds me of that my cousin Vinny. How much can we pile on to what is going on out there? But essentially, a federal judge unsealed some information with respect to an investigation that goes back to August of 2020, saying substantial political contributions were offered in exchange for a presidential pardon or reprieve of sentence. And essentially, Attorney General Barr, who, as most of you probably know right now, is in the hot seat with President Trump after he debunked any claims that there was a substantial voter fraud that would have affected election. And just before we came on air, there is a significant information that he may be on his way out. So we may yet have another fired Attorney General and another one coming in. Nevertheless, Attorney General Barr on this particular investigation tried to prevent the release of the information, keep it sealed, but the judge ruled that transparency would be mandatory. Holly, let me go to you first on this because I'm sorry, I apologize. We actually have a clip. Let's take a listen of it and I'll get to you guys on the other side.
As you said, this was a bombshell court order that was unsealed yesterday from an investigation that we know has been ongoing since at least August. The order basically showed that federal prosecutors had been looking into what they called a bribery for pardon scheme and also a secret lobbying scheme. Now, the secret lobbying scheme tried to ply senior White House officials, according to the court papers, and that essentially the government has been trying to get information about this, and they went to court to try to defeat attorney-client privilege. The judge allowed it. And that investigation, when she allowed it, Chief District Judge Beryl Howell basically gave a 90-day window and said, at the end of these 90 days, you have to tell me what we can release publicly. And so we're finding out about it now.
All right, so you said a few things that kind of caught my ear. You said it happened since August, but why are we finding out about just now? And do we know who unsealed these documents?
Well, the judge basically gave that 90-day window, and she told the government, at the end of these 90 days, let me know what I can release publicly. Now, interestingly, the Department of Justice tried not to release anything, and they recommended to keep it entirely under wraps. Judge Howell rejected that. And so essentially, by overruling them, she gave us a little bit of a public window of an investigation that has been long brewing.
Okay, so that's an investigative reporter, Adam Klasfeld, that was speaking with our very own Brian Buckmeyer on Law and Crime Daily, a great show that you guys should always watch, of course. So let me go to you, Holly, for a second. Let's talk about, I mean, I can understand as a former prosecutor that investigated cases, the Attorney General's reluctance to release information while an investigation is going on. But I find it even surprising that the Department of Justice is even pursuing an investigation like this, given how Attorney General Barr has very much supported the Trump agenda. But if true, these are some serious allegations, no?
Are we surprised, Bob? Are we surprised that we've got a bribery scheme that's been brewing by a convict since August that's seeking a pardon from the White House? I'm not surprised. What I am surprised about is the level of transparency that Judge Howell has allowed. And I think that's wonderful. I commend the checks and balances of the legal process to allow that. When I read the order from Judge Howell, Most of it was redacted. In fact, all of the background was redacted. We don't know who sent what to who. But we also know that technically this attorney-client privilege argument that was being asserted did not prevail because the communications were forwarded to a non-attorney and not an agent of the attorney either. So that argument failed because it wasn't protected and kept simply between the attorney and the client. So I think it's really fascinating that we've got from the top a White House that has been, following different rules to the different beat of its own drum. And I'm not surprised now that we've got people coming out of the woodwork looking to have pardons and favors from this White House, which doesn't necessarily follow all of the rules. So I'm very fascinated by this development, and I'm curious to know if we'll get to find out more about who these players are.
Yeah, Jamie, to that point, a lot was redacted in that information, and I'm told a number of names were redacted from that as well. Talk to us a little bit, Holly kind of touched on this a little bit, but the crime fraud exception to the attorney-client privilege as well here was asserted as one of the reasons why the judge allowed the government to intercept these communications.
Correct. So, Bob, as attorneys, we cannot participate in any sort of activities that are perpetuating crime. And if in fact you are involved in that in any way, shape, or form, you can't go back and rely on privilege to hide that impropriety. I do want to illuminate a little bit. I agree with Holly 100% that there's nothing shocking here based on what we've seen over the course of the last 4 years. I would suggest to you and your viewers that I don't think the names here are secret. I mean, they certainly have been redacted, but I think we know who these players are going to be. It's going to be Mr. Kushner, it's going to be Mr. Giuliani, and arguably other people at that highest level of the executive branch. The shocking nature of what's been alleged here it really is mind-boggling. We have seen pardons passed out over the course of, every administration has done that, some more than others. We had the Mark Rich situation with President Clinton, but there we had a situation where Mr. Rich had been a historical donor. Here, the allegation is that they literally were paying for relief, or at least anticipated relief. And, Bob, the thing that I think is going to really shock the conscience of the courts going forward in this case is that we're dealing with people that haven't even been charged with a crime yet. We're dealing with an anticipation of a crime. So Mr. Trump and his associates are apparently looking to shed a broad blanket over any possible incriminations that he and his family may come into. And I think this is going to test the courts.
Jamie, you bring up something that's really important here. And that I believe this list is going to be longer than just the Jared Kushner and Giuliani, because they're talking about paid political contributions. And obviously the president's not going to require that of his friends and his family. So I think the list is going to be longer. But, to the point, Holly, we are now at a spot where, remember when when Obama left and they were chanting, lock her up with respect to Hillary Clinton, there could have been no better opportunity than for President Obama to pardon her just out of fear that they would follow through, because we know the Department of Justice has been weaponized to go after the foes of certain people and to shield those who otherwise, that's just my sense, who otherwise are friendly with the administration. And the Obama administration did not pardon Hillary Clinton. I don't know if that was ever in the cards or not, because I believe the Obama administration believed that she did nothing wrong. But are we now in a place where presidents are going to just say, you know what, I'm pardoning everyone. You can expect that at the end of this administration, you're all pardoned. And what that leads to, Holly, you tell me, is complete chaos, because everyone knows they can act with impunity and lawlessness at the highest level of the branches of government.
Impunity and lawlessness. Those are two excellent words to describe some of the issues that have arisen over the past 4 years. And so I think that we are in an unprecedented time, obviously. And I think that right now we have a president who has refused to accept the actual election process. And when you have that level of disregard for the rule of law, for rules in general, then we're dealing, you're right, with a completely different chaotic situation. I think we are to expect a slew of pardons. I think we are to expect a slew of pardons across a broad swath of people that were associated with Mr. Trump. And I think that's because there were, people were coming close to the line, to the edges. We saw this back in January of 2020 during the impeachment process. We had a president who was reaching out to the president of Ukraine to withhold aid so that he could pursue information on his Democratic rival. So everybody in this administration, from the very top down, has walked the line of legality. And this is not an opinion. These are the facts that we can read in the paper or we can read on Twitter. And so because of that, we are about to enter into the next 4 years, a phase of what do we do with the chaos that ensues from the fact that we are literally making up the rules as we go sometimes, as the administration does. And so
Holly,
it's not a judgment, it's just a fact.
Holly, excellent point. I have to end it there. Got to switch topics, but it will really be interesting to see, will there be accountability, or will the Biden administration or the Attorney General that Biden, places there to say, let's just move on, and what message that send? Guys, let me ask you this question. The Supreme Court right now is weighing whether non-unanimous jury verdicts are constitutional. Jamie, what are your thoughts about this? Because this would be a major departure from our system.
This is terrifying, Bob. The idea that we're going to get away from the constitutional right to a jury, a trial by jury. This idea that we're not going to have a unanimous verdict when it talks about taking away somebody's liberty, putting people in jail, and arguably in some states taking away their life. The idea that we're going to depart from this is very, very troubling. I know that the district court has spoken on this, and my understanding is that it's going to be sent up to the Supreme Court via Mr. Kavanaugh initially, and this ruling, in the event that this is allowed to stand, this should raise a red flag like that's never ever been flown. We allow non-unanimous verdicts for civil proceedings where people are talking about property or some sort of civil rights. But when you're talking about taking away somebody's liberty and somebody's life, to depart from this precedent is truly terrifying.
Okay, yeah, Jamie, listen, as a prosecutor, I welcome 12 jurors and proof beyond the reasonable doubt. I guess call me a traditionalist. Guys, we got to take a quick break. We got more on the other side. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.